hello, beautiful people. It's Nicole coming to ya with the cure for chronic pain. How are you today? I hope this day finds you well. Today I have a super fun, exciting guest from all across the whole world. And it's a little hard when you record with someone all across the whole world because, first of all, it's today for me and it's tomorrow for her. And second of all, it requires you to really work on your technology connectivity issues. And so we did a little work on that. We worked it out okay. And I hope it comes out all right. Hope I'm delivering you a good interview. But today our guest is Carlene Reynolds. And she is an amazing, beautiful voice, a bit of a YouTube star. So look up Karliene Music, Karliene. She just sings she sings like an angel. What can I say? She sings like an angel. And Karliene, I first learned about her through her membership on my JournalSpeak page, my closed group on JournalSpeak. Closed group on Facebook, JournalSpeak with Nicole Sachs on Facebook. Look us up, join our group, join us in our conversation and support and community. She came on the page and she was talking about her struggles and she was talking about her pain. And as she was working through the JournalSpeak program and taking my online course, which is called Freedom from Chronic Pain, she was coming on with really great questions, and she just was very articulate and very expressive. And her pain moved from pain to anxiety, which she will talk about in the interview. And it was really challenging for her. It was really hard. But she carried on. This girl carried on, had a great attitude, incorporated her meditation into her JournalSpeak practice, and came out the other side. She is completely pain-free after excruciating on the floor, considering surgery sciatica. So she will talk to you guys about that and share her story with us. I was just thrilled that she reached back out on the page last week and said that she was doing beautifully, 100% no more pain in her body, just regular human pain the way we all feel. Once in a while a headache, once in a while a stomach ache, but no chronic pain in her life. And once again, another one of my walking around modern miracles who I love to hold up like the little Lion King cub and say, look what you can do for yourself if you just open your mind and your heart. So I want to share this interview with you today. Just a few programming notes. Anything that you want to learn about my work, including taking the online course, which Karliene is going to talk a lot about in her interview. You can go to thecureforchronicpain.com, click on the course link, and you can even get the first lesson for free. You can just sign on the homepage. And just to let everyone know that my Omega retreat is coming up this summer, July 21st through the 26th, and you can just click on my resources page on my website, sign up for Omega there, or sign up under the tab on my website, Work with Nicole. It's going to be wonderful, really exciting, and I'm planning everything now, and it's awesome. So I really, really hope if you want to do this work with me, because as you probably know, I am not accepting new patients right now because I'm working on bringing this work to the global community. If you want to do this work with me, come to Omega, 5 days of total transformation. It's going to be great. So so you can look at my stuff on my website, find out what you need to do for yourself. And without further ado, I give you Karliene. Hi, everybody. I am here today with Karliene, who was generous enough to come and share her story with us today. I do not know Karliene personally. We met through her reaching out to me as she was doing the work and being a really awesome active member of my Facebook group, my closed group where we are all having active conversation all the time about this work. So Karliene, welcome.
Hello everybody.
Oh, and by the way, Karliene is coming to us all the way from Melbourne, Australia. So we're working hard on our technical difficulties, and hopefully this is going to come through clearly.
Hello everyone.
So listen, Karliene, why don't you? I love when people get to hear stories of people doing this work and fighting the good fight. So I'm just going to open it up to you to tell the story of how chronic pain journey has gone for you.
Okay, so I guess we'll go back to 2016, around November time. So I've been having like on and off back pain for about a year, and it was this time in November it just started to get really, really painful, and it was sort of traveling down my leg. And I went to the doctors, and they said, "Yeah, you've got sciatica, which is probably from sitting at your desk, maybe bad posture, and all that kind of thing." And it was to say it was excruciating. I can't even put words into how painful it was. Like I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit at my desk. I couldn't work out. I was pretty much sort of spent most of my days lying around on the floor, um, on my back. It was just absolutely ridiculous. It was just horrendous. And obviously, I was doing physio. I did some chiropractic. What do you call it? Chiropractor
Yeah.
um, stuff. I was taking morphine tablets at night to help me sleep. I was just very, very miserable, very, very unhappy. Um, and obviously, when you get to a point where you sort of think, okay, nothing is working. This physio is not working. These drugs are just sort of, they're like putting a band-aid over it, but they're not really sorting the problem. I was Googling and sort of getting desperate and trying to find um, a cure. And somewhere in Google land, I found a guy that said that he cured his back pain with a book by someone called Dr. Sarno. And did some Googling and found this book, read it in a day, started just going mental on Google trying to find other people that have got this TMS thing, and found Nicole and found her videos and binge watched all of her videos. And it was Nicole really that kind of gave me hope. So you, Nicole, sorry, not to talk to you like you're not even here. um, you were sort of because Dr. Sarno, he talks about the method around it, but he doesn't really talk about how to cure yourself. And so it was sort of watching your videos that I discovered the work and the JournalSpeak, and started doing that religiously, sort of 2 times a day. And yeah, it sort of went on from there. So that was when good things started to happen. Um, so let me think. Hang on. So I was doing my journal speak sort of maybe twice a day because there was nothing else to do anyway. I was pretty much lying on the floor doing nothing. Uh,
Right.
so I was doing that twice a day, and then I started incorporating meditation into that as well. And I started to notice, I was getting slowly a little bit less sore than I was the day before. Weeks were going, and I was getting a little bit more mobile than I was. So I was able to walk around a bit more, and I was having a lot of more pain-free sort of bits in the day than I was before, and then I started to get better. I mean, it wasn't like a quick thing; it did take months, but
Right.
it was it was motivating because it was improving. It wasn't sort of staying in this painful, horrible place. There was little improvements and little wins. Um,
And Carlene, do if I recall this correctly, because I know that you and I have briefly chatted in the past, you
sure.
had other symptoms too prior to the sciatica. Didn't you have like pot syndrome?
Yeah, I did.
Um,
So, well, this is the thing because the sciatica was the thing that really woke me up to the fact that I had this TMS thing. But looking back in hindsight, I can see that I've had TMS illnesses sort of on and off my whole life. And the worst one I had was pot syndrome, and I had that for a good sort of 2 years.
can
Back
you
when I
tell can you tell people what pot syndrome is?
Yeah, so it's very scary. It's very horrendous. It's you basically you feel like you're going to faint all the time. You can't sit upright and stand upright without feeling like you're constantly gonna it's like having like head rush all the time. When you stand up really, really fast,
Yeah.
your head kind of goes, whoa. It's kind of like having that feeling, but constantly, and you just feel really, really woozy and dizzy and sick and weak and tired. And I couldn't really do anything. And this was one of those illnesses that I went to so many doctors, and they kept saying, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. It must be in your head. And in a way, they were was sort of right. But I eventually found a specialist that said you have pot syndrome, and spent 2 years kind of on medication and doing physio and doing all sorts of strange exercises trying to get myself better from that. And I was on the news with that, and I was in the newspaper, and I that was like a big deal when I went through that and kind of miraculously managed to cure myself from that. And looking back now, I can see that it was brought on very much by stressful stuff that was going on in my life at the time. And I think I got better because I got healthier and I was going to the gym and I was doing a lot of positive stuff for myself. So I actually think a lot of that positive stuff was probably curing me more than the drugs and the physio and all of that. So
So you had the pot syndrome, and did that, how quickly did that leave, that did the sciatica show up, or was there anything in between?
no, I was good for a while. I was sort of doing all right. Things had sort of like plateau. Things were going very calm in my life at the time. And then things started to go bad when I broke up with my partner, my long-term partner. I'd been with him for 7 years, and I had
Okay.
to move out and start again, and everything went crazy and hectic. And I was sort of doing all right, and then 2 years after that, the back pain. One, maybe not 2 years, maybe a year after that, the back pain started, and that sort of progressed into sciatica. So that I can sort of I feel like there's always this big thing that happens in my life, and I'm sort of good for a bit, and then after about a year, I start to get these crazy symptoms, and I think it's because I don't deal with the emotions surrounding all of the stuff that happens at that time. You know what I mean?
Right, of course, yeah.
So that sort of seems to be the pattern with me. And looking back on my life, even as far back as when I was sort of moving around as a kid, because my dad's a pilot, and he used to sort of we moved quite a few times, so he was working in different airports, and every time we had a big move, I'd sort of be fine for a bit, and then after like a few months, I'd start getting these random sort of weird illnesses. I seem to remember having these episodes of like crushing chest pain when I was about 15, not long after moving house, and I was also having these weird headaches um, and one weird thing I kept having where my ear kept going like ringing and like deaf, like one of my ears. It's just really bizarre, but like I look back on it now and I think it's all just TMS
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah. It's funny,
absolutely.
hindsight
Everything
wise, I can see it now.
sorry, we're this is with the technological
Sorry.
problems.
Sorry.
It sounds, a lot of the things you're mentioning. I just, so because I always am, I'm mindful when I'm doing this podcast that people are listening all over the world with all different kinds of symptoms. So everything Karliene is saying is classic TMS. I have seen all sorts of bizarre stuff with hearing, with ears, with tinnitus, with all sorts of stomach issues, chest pain, and I always say, of course, the first thing you should do if you're having something that terrifying is to go to a doctor and get checked out. I would never want someone to ignore a heart attack because they're going to do their journal speak. But I will say that the all the symptoms that she's describing, definitely, especially in children, when the children are experiencing stress and tension, um, can come out like that. So, Karliene, I'm curious, so you found Dr. Sarno's work, and then you found my work. What were your challenges, and what were the things that helped you? I know you did the course. I think you read the book, my book, right?
Yes,
Or
yes, I
no?
did. Yes, I did. So I read everything I could pretty much find on TMS at the time because I was just fascinated with it. And also, I saw it as my way out. So I saw it as my cure. So I was just pouring everything I had into finding out as much about it as possible and as much um, tools to help myself get through it. So the challenges, I guess. Um, so I don't know about challenges. I was just sort of doing I was doing my meditation every day as much as I could. I was doing JournalSpeak. I was reading and rereading and rereading all of the time because it's you keep getting these days of doubt where you start to think, oh, maybe I do have something. Maybe this is bad. Maybe I shouldn't be trying to walk when I'm in this much pain. Maybe I'm actually making it worse. Maybe I shouldn't be trying to sit at my desk because maybe that chair is making me um, in worse pain. Maybe I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be in even worse pain because I'm trying to fight this. And you have these days of doubt, and you have to keep going back to the material and reading and realizing, no, it's okay. It's okay. This is TMS. I'm fine. I can do this. I can keep trying to live my life and keep trying to get myself to a good place. Um, it's I think it's just the days of doubt that were sort of the killer for me, especially in regards to having when it started to switch up with anxiety and
Oh, right. Right. Yeah. Before we move on to the anxiety, I want to talk a little bit about the doubt that you're mentioning because,
Mhm.
I often say in my work, there are three facets to my work: believe, do the work, and patience and kindness for yourself. And the believe part is so important. And I
Mhm.
think what Karliene is saying that's really important for people to understand is you can't choose to believe something sometimes. Sometimes your brain requires repetition and patient coming back to the same thing over and over again without fear and just without judgment, just continuing. You feel doubt one day, you're like, you know what, I'm going to read up again on the book, or I'm going to, you know, um, do the lessons in the course again, or I'm going to listen to the podcast or research other people who are talking about TMS recovery online, or go to the Journal Speak page on Facebook, the closed group, and ask to join and get part of the conversation. Because I think that using these tools over and over again help your brain metabolize that this is something you can really believe in. This is truth. And when people start understanding that little doubt in your mind goes down and down, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I did something which I kind of regret. When I bought your course, you had two options to have just a one-off version of the course that you could do one time, and then you had one version where it was like you could download it. And I kind of wish I'd got the downloaded version because it was something I wish that I'd had to redo and redo because it was so good. When I did it, it was pretty much the thing that kicked my pain. But it was something I wish I'd kept so that when I had all these other symptoms later on, I could have gone back and just sort of redid it over and over and over again because it is like you say, it's just you've got to keep convincing your brain all the time that this is just a TMS thing, and you're going to get over it because it's the doubt that sort of feeds the symptoms. It seems to those doubtful days always made me have worse symptoms because I would be sitting there getting panicked about what I've got and thinking, oh my God, this isn't going to get any better. I'm stuck in this pain, or I'm stuck with this stomach pain or anxiety or whatever it was that day. And I think it wasn't going to get better, or it was going to get worse. And the panic, and that was sort of the worst thing. So just sort of re going over the material as much as possible is really really beneficial.
Yeah, and I like to tell people when they first learn about this work, you're like a dry plant, okay? You're not dead, but you're dry. And so you're like this potted plant and you've gone totally dry. And now I'm walking over and I'm going to pour 3 gallons of water into your pot. 1 gallon's going to go in, but the other two are going to go over the side because there's only so quickly that you can absorb totally new material. All of us who are raised, anyone over the age of, I would actually say, if you're not being raised by me, everyone in the world is basically being taught that pain is something to be afraid of. Pain is something to immediately seek an end to with, like my kids, they run up to me and they say, Mommy, I have a blank, do I need to go to the doctor? Do I need to this? And sometimes I say to them, you know what? It looks like what you have is something that we just need to feel through because there's no easy answers for everything in life. Not every pain can just be taken away by a simple method. But we're taught immediately upon feeling the discomfort and pain to run for a solution, and that it's not good and that it's something to be scared of.
Of
And
course.
that is like a really, for any of us who are adults, that's a long-standing belief that's like woven into our DNA of what we think of pain. And so that's why, being the dry plant that we all are when we learn something new, it's really important to just continually go through. And yeah, I do appreciate what you're saying about buying the deluxe version of the course. And Karlene, I'll just send you a download, girl.
Thank you.
Because I I want you to be well forever. But listen, podcast guest, there's got to be some sort of payment. Right? She's coming on free. But in any case, I do appreciate the fact that it's a good idea to return to this stuff again and again. And I will promise you, and I know the reason Carlene's on the podcast today, because she's here to share her success, that if you're patient and kind with yourself and you just consistently do the work and you don't judge yourself and you don't say, am I doing it right or wrong? And if you have a question, you get on the Journal Speak page and you ask the question. Every tool you need is out there for you, that this can really work. So Karlene, talk more about your journey and what worked and what life is like now.
So it feels like it's been a long time doing this. Um, but it's been an amazing sort of journey where I feel like I know myself so much better than I've ever known myself. It's been a good year or so of dealing with a cocktail of symptoms. I've had everything from a really, really bad time with anxiety after the pain. And I think that's quite common from what I've read on the Facebook page. I think that's quite common with a lot of TMS people. After
Yes,
pain, they tend to get the anxiety stuff. So I had all of that. I had stomach pains, I had headaches, I had fatigue, I had you name it. I've probably had it at some point. Um, and it's just all about just doing the work, as you say, rereading. I've been doing a lot of meditation. I've been um, also just trying to do a lot of stuff where I try and bring a little bit more joy into my life, because I think I was kind of living a little bit in a kind of this kind of obligation. I had these constant lists of things that I always had to do every day, and it was all boring stuff that I didn't want to do, and it was myself putting pressure on myself to always get all of this stuff done. And I'm sort of trying to be a little bit kinder to myself. I'm doing things that I've been wanting to do for ages. I decided to learn to drive this year. I got myself a dog, and he's just the most fantastic little thing. I adore him. He just brings me so much joy. And I don't know, just trying to be a little, just trying to live a little bit more freely. Try and also knowing where my another thing I found out with this work is knowing where my boundaries are and knowing when it's okay to say no to stuff. Because I think another thing that a lot of TMS people do is we constantly feel like we have to do stuff for other people and constantly say yes to things that we don't necessarily want
right,
to do.
right.
And I've been getting a little bit better at saying when I genuinely don't want to do something, just saying, you know what, I don't want to do this. Why do I have to do this? I can just say, look, sorry, I don't really want to come to that big party at the weekend. I kind of just want to sit around with my dog and watch movies. So I might just do that and just stop putting this pressure on myself to constantly be someone that I don't have to be. Just be who I want to be, just be myself and be comfortable with that. So there's been a lot of that kind of in my life now.
So you say, okay, so I want to go back to the anxiety.
Hmm.
Before we talk about like your symptoms today, I want to talk about what happened to you once your pain went away and the anxiety came. I actually remember the day you posted this on the Facebook page because we were very distressed.
Oh God, yeah.
Um, yeah, your anxiety was way up. And so I want to tell people how normal this is. So let's just think about what's happening in our bodies, right? Your nervous system is working perfectly when you're in chronic pain. Even though it feels horrible and shitty, your nervous system is working perfectly, which is the predator of your repressed emotions are seen as a greater predator than your pain or your anxiety or any symptom that's physical. And so if the nervous system has no choice but to choose what hurts or what hurts worse, and it sees a predator in its peripheral vision that's coming at you, which is these repressed emotions, it's going to protect you with it's not emotional, it's not against you, it's not going to sabotage you. It's like a light switch. If it goes up, the light goes on. If it goes down, the light goes off. And if you're in fight or flight and that light switch is up, it is going to protect you with any symptom that it feels necessary to divert you from the repressed emotions that are rising. So as you start to do the work, sometimes the pain goes, but then something that seems like it could be unrelated, like anxiety, comes. And so I want you to talk about, Karliene, what it felt like when that happened. What did it physically feel like? And then how did you push yourself to continue with the journal speak and the meditation to get where you are today?
Okay, so that was really alarming when that started to happen, because I had a little grace period where the pain was going down and I was feeling pretty good. And I thought, oh, great, then maybe this process is over and I'm kind of done. I'm out of the woods. Um,
Yeah.
but then, but then I started getting this like anxiety, and it was building. And I got this one day where I seem to remember it just kind of like hit me like a train, and I was in just sheer panic for no reason, but just everything was just felt incredibly overwhelming. And I think I wrote on that page, on your Facebook page that day, just saying, I don't know what's going on. I'm freaking out. Everything's going mental. I feel really wired and anxious, and I don't know what's happening. And I think a lot of people were saying, don't worry, it's cool. This has happened to me as well. Um, it was it was unexpected. I think I kind of thought when the pain was going to go, that was kind of going to be it. So I didn't realize it was going to change up with something else. And I think all I had to, it was a case of having to really go back to the material again, and read it and sort of absorb it and realize that this is part of it, and it's just going to be another thing I'm going to have to work through with the journal speak. I'm not done with it. I'm going to have to just keep going deeper into myself and find out where all this is coming from. And I don't think I really got to the deep stuff in my repressed, not repressed, I'm sort of, well, yeah, repressed emotions, until quite a lot later. I was sort of skimming the surface with stuff that had happened very recently, but hadn't really gone to the stuff that had happened sort of deep down in my childhood. And once I started tackling that, I noticed my anxiety actually started to alleviate. And anxiety has been something I've had on and off throughout my life anyway. It wasn't like a new thing. I mean, I knew it was anxiety. I've had episodes of it really bad throughout my life. I had it before I moved to Australia. I had it when I was a kid, when I first moved to a new school. Um, I've had episodes of it, and I recognize now where it sort of comes from. Um, but it's terrifying. It is terrifying when you get it, and you think that you're just going to be stuck in this new symptom. You just got to try and journal speak through it. And there was days when I felt like I couldn't even journal speak because I was just so shaky and nauseous and dizzy and terrified, and I just felt like I couldn't focus on what I was writing because the overwhelming anxiety was just like wow. And on those days I just try and meditate. If I really couldn't write, then the next best thing was to try and meditate myself to a calmer kind of place. So yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Here's the thing I want to tell people, and this is like, I wish I could look deeply into each of your eyes while I'm saying this. There is no other way out than through. There's no other way out. And I say this not to be negative. I say this to be realistic so people just stop the debating society and stop saying, oh God, well, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to feel a stomach ache and then anxiety. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, but I don't want. And I say, I know, honey, I love you and I know, but there's no way out. It's either sit where you are in whatever hell that is, because most people will define it as that, or take the journey and breathe and know if you keep walking, left foot, right foot, breathe, left foot, right foot, breathe. If you keep walking, everything will pass. But the problem with any journey is that if a journey gets frightening or difficult or uncomfortable or hard, and by the way, I am right there with you. I'm just like you. I'm further up the mountain because I've been doing this a long time, but I'm still a human being just like all of you. And when it gets hard, we're tempted to stop. We're tempted to divert, right? Let's eat too much, let's drink too much, let's watch too much TV, let's overwork ourselves and say we don't have time for the journal speak and the meditation. Let's do that. But if you stop on a journey, you're just stopped. You still got to keep walking out until you get through. And what I love what Karliene is saying is that her anxiety allowed her to know that there was more work to do. And by doing that work patiently, and even on those horrible days where it was so hard, to just meditate and breathe and know this too shall pass, go to sleep, wake up, the next day will be different. Maybe I'll be able to do it the next day, which I know she was,
Mhm.
because eventually all that stopped. So, why don't you tell everybody what life is like for you now, how it feels day to day, and how you feel about yourself and your life?
I'm a lot better. I'd like to, I still feel like I'm on some kind of journey because not everything is sort of like just resolved. I still have things that I feel like I'm working through within myself, but I feel my I'm no longer stuck in this kind of, waking up and wondering what cocktail of symptoms I'm going to have today and what I'm going to have to deal with. And I get up and I'm able to have my day, and I don't even have to journal speak now every day like I was. I've gotten myself to a place where I pick it up when I know I need it. I know when I'm feeling stressed. I know when I'm having a lot on, and I probably need to journal speak it out before it turns into symptoms. I also know when my body starts to have symptoms, it's a sign that I've taken it too far. I need to now stop, do some journal speak, get back into meditation for a while. But overall, life is so much better now. I'm I'm in a better place. I know myself a lot better now. I I feel I feel like I'm just enjoying my life a lot more. I take more breaks. I try not to overwork myself. When I got sciatica and back pain, that whole year I've been working like a crazy person. Like I was trying to bring out. I work as a musician for anyone that doesn't know, and I was trying to bring out a song like every week. I was trying to write and create every week, thinking I had to be on it, and it was just ridiculous. Like no one can create like every week. It's stupid. I was putting so much pressure on myself, and I'm not surprised I ended up in that place. Um, but now I take breaks. Now I try and enjoy life between work, so I'm not always putting this stupid amount of pressure on myself. Um, yeah, life's a lot better. It's really, really good. I'm still on a road, but I'm getting there.
And do you have any chronic pain symptoms that are every day anymore?
No, nothing. No pain. Absolutely no pain. If anything, when I do get symptoms, it tends to be, well, sometimes I get a headache. That's probably like my only pain thing, but I tend to just get like stomach aches or sometimes I'll feel a little bit dizzy and a bit fatigued. That tends to be sort of like where it goes to now. And it's never hugely intense. It's just like my body saying, hey, 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 you need to stop and listen. I'm needing to get some stuff off my chest. That kind of thing. It's the little girl inside just saying, stop, listen to me. So
Yeah, that is so I want people to also hear that this is such a beautiful thing because, I can't tell you how many people I know that are in a situation with sciatica and they're going to get a surgery.
oh God.
And
Oh
I know. And this is the thing. People don't understand. How could Karliene be better and sometimes get a headache and sometimes get a stomach ache here and there if she needed a surgery in her leg or her butt or her back. You know, I think, I always say to people all the time, the pain is not in your head, but the solution is not in your body. And if people could just give themselves the gift of being curious about this work and open their minds, they can understand you can never heal a problem that is your nervous system protecting you with different symptoms by getting surgery on the part of your body where it hurts. It just doesn't work.
no,
And, I'm not saying that I don't have any sort of sweeping problem with the surgical model. I'm just saying that you need to be your own best advocate because if Karlene had surgery, someone cut into her sciatic nerve or her back or whatever they do for sciatica surgery, I don't even know. But the point is, what a tragedy because then she'd be recovering from that. Whereas she's healed all her problems just by doing this journal speak work. And even though I always say there's no cure for human pain. Obviously, we're always going to experience, little things here and there, passing headache or a stomach ache, or you feel a little dizzy and overwhelmed. Yeah, hello, that's being human. And that's like, there's no way to have a stress free life. But chronic pain requires fear, wouldn't you say, Karlene?
absolutely. Yeah. And it does always come from a place of like intense fear. Um, it gives me like I can't believe I actually did look at the surgery side of sciatica when I was before I'd sort of found the TMS stuff, and I did start to sort of think, oh my God, am I going to need to have surgery on this? And I was looking into people who'd said they'd had surgery and it done nothing for them, and it was just this terrifying sort of rabbit hole of of people that had sort of, oh, it terrifies me just how easily you can go into that and make things worse, when
Yeah.
it's an emotional problem that needs to be looked at and not a physical problem. Yeah. And I wish
Yeah.
more doctors knew about it as well. Like, you know,
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, that's my goal. When people say, "What is your goal in your work?" and I'm like, my goal is nothing short of changing the face of the medical model on the entire planet because I just want people to know this is an option. It doesn't mean don't see a doctor, it doesn't mean don't get yourself checked out, but before you take the time to and the energy and the money and the misery and the recovery of cutting into your body and altering your very natural way that your body functions, emotions might be the genesis of chronic pain, but it doesn't make the pain any less excruciating. Karlene was just saying you were like on the floor,
oh, it's
you know,
true. It was awful. And and when I first found out about this work, there was, the initial stages, you go from thinking, okay, this is what I've got, this makes sense to me. And then you're thinking, how is this excruciating pain coming from emotional problems? It just, you couldn't put the two and two together because it just seemed so bizarre that your very, very physical, awful pain was coming from something that was all sort of emotional based. Bizarre.
I hear that a lot, but I will say, so sometimes when I give workshops and talks, I start with asking the audience, raise your hand if you've ever had a really long day and gotten a horrible headache. And
Yeah.
everyone in the audience raises their hand. And then I say, raise your hand if you've ever gotten bad news and immediately your stomach went sick. And
Mhm.
everybody raises their hand. Raise your hand if you've ever been really super stressed out and you broke into hives. There's always a few people who have had that. And so I say, well, listen, I'm telling you something you already believe. I'm telling you something that you already believe every day. You would never go for a brain scan because you had a brain tumor, because if thinking you had a brain tumor, if you had a long day and you had a headache, you'd go to sleep and you'd say, "Oh man, it was a long day, oh shit, that sucked." That it wouldn't be, when people hear of a comedian running to the bathroom and throwing up before his set, they don't think he has stomach cancer. They think he was scared, he was nervous, he was anxious, and so he got sick. You know, but what the problem is, when things get chronic, we forget that emotions can be involved in how we feel.
Exactly.
And we throw all that out the window, all that knowledge, all that understanding of just being a human being as soon as something gets chronic. And I just invite people not to do that and to give themselves the chance to do this work, because the pain that Karliene felt in her sciatic nerve was not because of emotions. So I'm going to just get this clear. It was because her nervous system, as triggered by the emotions, went into a state of fight or flight and sent pain signals to a certain area of her body to protect her and divert her from feelings that were getting too big to be held down. And, although our brain and our nervous system is very understood, as much as it can be in 2019, we do not understand it at all enough to understand the intricate workings of the way our bodies react when we are in danger.
Mm.
And, modern society is a constant onslaught of predators. It's no longer just the saber-toothed tiger and the woolly mammoth. We've got everything, relationships, our history, our triggers, our trauma. We're so evolved in a lot of ways, so we're able to look at the world in such a sophisticated fashion, but that also creates a tremendous amount of fear,
Mhm.
a tremendous amount of rage. Did you find a lot of rage in your journaling?
Oh yeah, yeah, a lot. Initially, it was a lot of hurt stuff that came out, and then later, after doing a lot of reading, I'm realizing that a lot of the stuff, a lot of the text was about trying to tune into that inner rage. So you need to try and get out that angry stuff. Find where you're angry and try and get that out. And once I sort of tapped into that, I realized just how angry I was. And I hadn't realized I'd been angry about some of those things in my childhood, but I was incredibly angry. And once I got into that, a lot of my anxiety was relieved, actually, because I anxiety doesn't really have a place to go when you're angry. It's kind of, anger is kind of like the opposite of being anxious. It's kind of, it feels quite good to sort of just get like really rah at the page. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And Dr. Sarno talks a lot about rage. I kind of expanded it when I created my work to more anger and rage and fear and shame and all the things that sit in our emotional reservoirs. But I think a lot of people, especially a lot of people susceptible to TMS, don't have an easy time feeling rage.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I have to be honest with you, even today, as the adult that I am, I have trouble feeling anger. Like, I can feel sad super easily. I can feel scared super easily. I can feel self-pitying really easily. But anger, to get angry at someone, I was raised by a really rageaholic dad. He would just get super, super angry and scream and yell about like anything. And
yeah.
to my mom and to me, and I just think I put a block. I like threw a wall up against feeling anger. And I know a lot of things when I need to journal, I have to really breathe and allow that anger to rise because it doesn't feel like it has permission.
That's the
So
same
that
as
can be
me.
a tough one.
Yeah, that's the same as me. I had a very angry mum, and a lot of screaming matches at me where she would do all the shouting, but I wasn't allowed to ever speak back. It was like a common thing where she'd sort of say, that I wasn't allowed to talk back at her. And so I think I'd gotten used to not expressing my anger and my feelings. And so that was sort of something that took a while to come out in my journal speak, to allow myself to say all those things back at her that I hadn't been allowed to say. I was angry. I hadn't been able to express that. So I think a lot of my TMS had come about, had started from those sort of young, young versions of me being shouted at by my mom. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. I remember my greatest fantasy when I was a little kid, which is so funny because my dad didn't hit me. He just would scream at me. But my greatest fantasy was my dad standing in like this old fashioned jail cage, like almost like he was in a cage, and I could say anything I wanted to him. And it's so funny because he wasn't threatening to hurt me, but it just shows when you have a child and you are angry and you're judgmental and you're yelling at them,
Hmm.
how powerless it makes them feel,
Hmm.
you know?
Absolutely. As kids, you just you sponge a lot of stuff up. I'm sure, and I know every parent, they're not, no one means to be a bad parent or do the wrong thing, but you don't always realize, do you, just how much your child is absorbing sort of negative, horrible emotions from the way you are being. So it's, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of forgiveness as well in my journaling though as well. I try to always get to places where I can sort of get the rage out and then get to a place where I can forgive and sort of let go as well, because I feel like that's important, is not to just sort of end on the anger. I don't know if you sort of do that with your kind of journal thing, but I try not to end on a really nasty angry place. I try to get to a place of feeling like it's a little bit resolved, if that makes sense.
Well, I find that that's the natural progression of things, at least in my work. And I've heard it from many, many people where they get it out and they get it out and they really let themselves talk like that 5-year-old inside and rage and journal speak. And after it's done, you do come to a place of compassion.
Hmm.
You actually arrive there pretty naturally. At least I always do.
Yeah, yeah.
Owning my part and seeing my place in it and feeling compassion for the other person. Like a lot of my work around my dad has been feeling the compassion for the tortured man that he was.
Hmm.
I may have been an innocent child, but he was really, really struggling in a lot of my life. And I can feel compassion for him now that I've done this work, that I
Absolutely.
don't have to
Yeah.
feel so angry anymore.
Yeah, I get that as well. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of this work, is just being able to really see things the way that I'd never seen before. Being able to see my parents and understand why they were the way they were. It allows you to um, really look at your life in ways that I've never done before.
So Carlene, as we close, do you have any advice that you would give to people? Let's say you're talking to someone who is just learning about this process, or maybe they've been trying it for a little while and they're struggling. What's the best Journal Speak Warrior advice you can give someone now that you're on the other side?
Um, I think I've said this before, but I think trying not to put your healing journey, try not to measure it against other people's journeys. It's great to go to that Facebook page and talk to people and share stories and share tips. But when someone says, "Oh, I healed in just this amount of time and I was doing journal speak this much," don't sort of look at that as like well, that will work for me. If I do journal speak this many times, I should be healed within about a month. It really sort of doesn't work like that. You kind of have to just um, let go and just do the work and let your body, run its course. It's not something that you can really measure. I'd also say just, try and just do everything. Just meditate, journal, speak as often as you can. Try and be kind to yourself. Try and give yourself little positive things. to anchor yourself to when you're sort of having those bad days, so that you have something positive to think about, and or look forward to. Um, yeah, I don't know, stuff like that.
No, that's great. That's great. That's awesome advice. That is awesome advice. And I hope that everyone out there hearing this interview, gives himself a moment to pause and to breathe and to know that this is possible for you too.
Hmm.
Karlene and I are just two normal people, just like thousands and thousands of people around the world that are healing from this right now as we speak. And each person's journey is his or her own. And Karlene, thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay, that's lovely. It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome. And so for everybody out there, we will see you next time. This has been The Cure for Chronic Pain. Bye bye.